Cutesy time is officially over. At 8 o'clock this morning, Dan Bongino, who you normally see on this channel, was just sworn in as the Deputy Director of the FBI, and I'm already resting easier knowing that he's there. It is so good to be with you. I'm Vince Colonnese. This program is called Vince. We are going to have a tremendous amount of good fun together. Lots of stuff to get to. I've got Tucker Carlson coming up here in just a moment. We're going to have a full-blown interview with him. You're not going to want to miss any of this. Stay locked here. This is Vince. We're live on Rumble. My thanks to the fellows. Just great to be here with everybody, Guy and Justin and the team. This is cool. And once again, for those of you who didn't see me as we did this big lead up, and you probably did because Dan was the most generous host in the world in the way that he passed all of this off. But if you didn't, I'm Vince Colonnese. I've been with the Daily Caller for 15 years. I've been on radio in Washington, WMAL, for the last 8. And now I get to be here with you. And I couldn't be more excited. I know this is such a privilege. And so what we're going to do with this program is we're going to have just a relentless breakdown on the news. I have an obsessive focus on what's good for Americans, i.e. me and you. And we're going to have a lot of huge interviews, including with my next guest, Tucker Carlson. So we will get to... Should I introduce Tucker, fellas? Should I bring him in? He's sitting here, so why don't I just say, Tucker Carlson is in the house.
Why, thank you, Vince.
Hello.
Congratulations.
This is Tucker, and it's a good luck charm always, Tucker, to have you as my first guest. Because it turns out each time I do a new show, the first thing I do is like, can I have you as a first guest? And it's worked out great so far, actually.
We toasted you at dinner last night, and my wife, who loves you, as you know, said, Vince has earned it. I thought that's totally true. One of the smartest people in all of media, and it's just a thrill to see this.
It's a thrill to do it. So we're going to jump in a moment with Tucker. But first, as you might expect, I got to tell you about the great people at ExpressVPN. You know all about these data brokers. And those greedy tech companies, they're all just gathering up, they're hoovering up all of your online activity. And you know what they do with that? They compile it, and then they sell it to other companies and even foreign governments. And that's why we use an app called ExpressVPN right here, because ExpressVPN is a company that's committed to just protecting you from the big brother data brokers. With ExpressVPN, 100% of your online activity travels through secure, encrypted tunnels, and ExpressVPN also hides your IP address. It's a huge deal. And without that number, well, a data broker doesn't have the information about you to sell to the next shady company. ExpressVPN also just rolled out a brand new feature for all of its American customers called Identity Defender, and that will get your data removed from data brokers' files, monitor the dark web for your leaked information, and then alert you when somebody tries to use your social security number. This isn't about being a shady person and looking up shady things online. This is about your right to privacy. So protect yourself with ExpressVPN, because that is your right. So right now, you can get an extra 4 months for free when you use my special link. Go to expressvpn.com/Vince and get 4 extra months. That's 4 of ExpressVPN. That's EXPRESS. You know how to spell Express. ExpressVPN.com/Vince. All right. Tucker?
I thought there was one S in Express, no?
They added one.
It's
for my special.
For safety.
For safety. Okay, so Dan Bongino.
That's unbelievable.
Is now the Deputy Director of the FBI.
Oh, so someone texted me about it when it happened, and I didn't believe it, and I texted Dan immediately. This is true, yes. And I was filled with gratitude, and I wasn't even going to say this because no one will believe this at all, but having spent my life in Washington, my dad ran a federal agency. I know what that life is. And then, now spending the rest of my life in media, he is really giving up a lot. He knows that. No one will believe this. They all think it's about the power. It's not about the power, obviously. It's about his desire to help the country. And again, even if nobody else agrees, I know in my heart for a fact this is a patriotic sacrifice that he's making. And I'm so impressed by what he's done.
Also, the specific job sounds very good.
No!
It doesn't... So there are all sorts of jobs that are kind of glamorous. Secretary of State, you get like a big title that you carry with you for the rest of your life. But this job, Deputy Director of the FBI, you're not the director, so you don't carry the glory of that forever.
Right.
And it's actually the guy who really runs the operation.
Yes, and your enemies are in the building. And they know, everyone knows Bongino, and they know what he's like, and they're afraid. Yeah. The wrongdoers, a million great FBI agents, I am sure, a lot of bad ones, and they're smart. And these are not, these are formidable opponents.
Yep.
And there are a million ways to entangle you in a bureaucracy that big and to hurt you. And so, yeah, I mean, he could use our prayers.
Also,
that's a job.
And also, it increases my confidence level in the leadership. So even if I didn't know Dan, just from the outside watching Dan and sort of his authenticity on all of these issues through the years, it makes me feel better that he's going to be in a position to tell me what's going on. You know what I mean?
For sure.
As an American.
For sure.
Because if he comes back to me and he's like, look, the Epstein files, we really did look for them. It turns out they've all been destroyed. There are huge categories of people I wouldn't trust on that subject. At least with Dan, I'd be like, I believe that. I believe what you're telling me.
Yes, and he's almost constitutionally unable to deal with too much lying.
Yeah.
It makes him mad.
Yeah.
And I love that about him. His BS meter is in him, and it goes off with a loud siren. So I don't think Dan can even handle sitting and staring at the camera and telling you some elaborate lie. I don't think he could do it. Again, this all makes him a great threat to the wrongdoers within that bureau, and there are a lot of them. And so, I mean, wow.
And there are massive priorities to get to. So obviously, the Biden FBI decided that it would theatrically destroy the lives of everyone who voted for Trump.
Of course.
That was their plan.
And ladies who pray outside abortion clinics and other threats to national security.
Sit in wheelchairs and sing church hymns.
Yeah.
Outside of abortion mills. So that was their priority. Meanwhile, the FBI under Kash Patel and now under Dan Bongino, it seems like their priority is going after criminals. Kash was just speaking on Friday at the same event that President Trump went to, which was amazing, at the United States Department of Justice. And he was talking about, we've picked up hundreds of criminals all across the country, some of the most violent people you could possibly imagine. They're all over the place. We're catching them. And the other thing that really is bugging me right now is all of the domestic terror attacks on, first of all, Elon Musk and all of his properties, all these Teslas being destroyed, and then also on conservatives who are being swatted.
Of course.
This past weekend, we have dozens of people who've had the cops called on them, and the idea is that like some terrorist will call the police department and suggest that there's some sort of active shooting going on inside of the home of a conservative, usually a prominent, influential conservative person, and then the cops descend like they're about to encounter open gunfire on that home, and they're just sleeping peacefully at home with their families.
Of course.
The FBI needs to get to the bottom of this.
They do, and there are a couple pretty big unaddressed problems that threaten the security of the country, the physical safety of the country. One of them, the biggest, are the Mexican drug cartels, which have become far more powerful in the United States over the past 4 years. I think there's some evidence they have some great control of the state of Arizona, for example. Mm-hmm. They're all over Texas, for example, New Mexico, all the border states, particularly Arizona. And, I mean, these are not just – this is not like the mafia. This is not La Cosa Nostra where they're like, loan sharking and selling heroin and moving pornography, but basically just kind of fighting with each other. That's bad. The FBI spent decades dismantling that network. These are people who are active Satanists, for one thing, who kill people for the pure pleasure of killing people.
Yes.
Who've murdered hundreds of thousands of Latin Americans over the past 20 years, and who have military hardware, some of it from Ukraine, sold by the Ukrainian military, that is equivalent to an army. And they completely control Mexico, except for Mexico City, which I guess the president sort of controls, but the rest of the country is controlled by the drug cartels. That could happen here. I think there's some indication that it is happening. I don't think there's any bigger priority than that. And it was ignored by the Biden administration.
There's also a massive role that China plays in that.
Yes.
So Peter Schweitzer has written an incredible book on this subject, but basically breaking down how the Chinese are selling all of the goods at cost for the creation of fentanyl. So it's not just like the cartels are going on the open market. They're not going on Amazon and buying the precursors or Alibaba. They're working with the Chinese government to bring in at-cost chemicals in order to generate this fentanyl. In Mexico, they have Chinese scientists who are working on actually making the drugs.
That's correct.
The pill presses are sold by the Chinese at cost in order to make the drugs. They're using Chinese encrypted apps in order to get into the country to communicate with one another. Correct. So the Chinese Communist Party has a huge hand in this, in killing what, over 100,000 Americans a year.
For sure, but it's happening in Mexico. And China, is 10,000 miles away. Mexico is right there. I mean, a bunch of Saudis used Afghanistan as the staging ground for terror attacks on the United States, and we invaded Afghanistan.
Right.
I'm not saying we should invade Mexico. We shouldn't. On the other hand, we should remember that the closer a threat is physically, geography really matters, even in the age of the internet. And the closer the threat is physically, the greater the threat it is.
Yes.
And so we're not going to be invaded by China, actually, but we can certainly be destroyed by Mexico. And the Mexican government, to whatever extent, is participating in this as an enemy of the United States, but the country itself is a grave threat. That's not an attack on Mexicans. Everyone likes Mexicans. No one doesn't like Mexicans. They're like the nicest people in the world. But the country itself is the number one threat to the United States. Sorry, it's not Iran. It's absurd. It's not the Houthis. Absurd. Iran and the Houthis pose no actual threat to the United States. How many Americans have been killed by Iran or the Houthis in the U.S. in the last 20 years? Right around zero. How many Americans have been killed by drugs or people coming up through Mexico in the last 20 years? Hundreds of thousands.
Yeah.
So like millions, actually. So stop lying to me about what the priority is. The priority is stopping the murder and degradation of Americans, and that's coming from Mexico.
Right. And
period.
So you said a second ago, but you don't think we should invade Mexico.
I don't think we have a track record of successful invasion or occupation. We have a pretty good track record of killing the leaders of governments, but that's easy. That's just a kind of vandalism. It's easy to kill people. It's very hard to occupy a country that's not yours.
So what do you think of all these? There's a lot of speculation about what we should do with the cartels, especially the leadership. Are you for or against, or do you have a view on this idea that we send in our elite operators to take out the heads of the cartels?
The first thing we should do is make sure that no elected officials in the United States are taking cartel money. That's the number one thing we should do. Mm-hmm. And we've got these elaborate, throughout a bunch of different federal agencies, including the FBI, money laundering interdiction operations where you can't even withdraw large amounts of cash from the bank without getting invasive questions or getting hassled. Why is that? It's the name of, we're going to stop money laundering.
Yep.
And this arose with a bunch of these horrible laws after 9/11. But the idea was to stop money laundering. Okay, it was to track the movement of money between countries to keep America safe. Well, there was a lot of money flowing from the drug cartels into the United States, and where is it going? And how many elected officials are taking that cash? That's the first thing. You don't want your political system controlled by cartels. Mexico's political system is controlled by cartels. Therefore, you can't beat the cartels because the people in charge, putatively in charge, not actually in charge, but the puppets who occupy the elected offices are taking cartel money, and the journalists and the clergy. Like, the penetration is full. It's complete. You don't want that here. We will never recover from that, and we're moving toward that, and no one's saying that out loud.
It is the reason, Mexico looks like what it does. So you have border towns all along the U.S. and Mexico border, some of which are sister cities. Yes. And you have, on the Mexican side, complete corruption, degradation, criminality. The only way to operate a business is through bribery. It's madness. And then right across the border on the American side, thankfully, for the most part, in the United States, it's secure. It's relatively peaceful.
And by the way, there are Mexicans on both sides. There are people of Mexican ancestry.
They're the same families.
Exactly. And some are living in peace and harmony and safety, and others are living in Hobbesian chaos. So the system matters. Corruption, it's not simply like, paying the DMV lady to get your driver's license faster. Once it gets in your system, this has happened in Ukraine, it's very hard to get it out. It changes people's expectations about their relationship with government. Everything changes. Everything rots. And the cartel money, this is hundreds of billions of dollars annually. And so that money will rot our country, and we need to keep track of it. And also we need to figure out, where did they get all these weapon systems? A lot of them came from Ukraine. Again, no one wants to say that for some reason, but it's a fact. We paid for the weapon systems that the cartels have. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Yeah. And also the weapon systems that we've been sending to Ukraine have apparently been drawing down from our own stockpile of defense. So if they're going to Ukraine and then they're being sold off, we're in an even worse situation now to our enemies.
Well, because you're from a military family, and we're in a critical position with armaments now. The U.S. military's main supplier of propellant, of gunpowder in Virginia, caught fire 10 days ago and is going to be offline for 4 months. World War II era facility that for some reason we're dependent on. The whole thing is bizarre. The internal supply chains with armaments are like very weird. Like no one thought to build more ammo plants. Like no one did. But anyway, yes, no.
Well, also, they're very diffuse because we've built them in every district in the country.
That's exactly right. But the biggest is in Virginia, and for some reason it caught fire about 2 weeks ago, and the official it got no coverage whatsoever, but the official explanation was, well, it's really old and ammo plants catch fire. Really? Along with all the poultry plants and all these other critical manufacturing facilities that we need to like live, and they're all burning down? I mean, maybe it's all an accident, I don't think so.
So talk about like a coincidence of all these traumatic events happening at the same time. It goes back to what I was saying before, which is you've got all of these attacks on Tesla operations. You have attacks on vehicles, certainly, by extension, bullet holes in the side of Tesla dealerships, burned up stations, and then, of course, all of the swatting incidents all happening at the same time.
Right. And but it's not coordinated.
It brings me back. It brings me back to 2020.
Yeah.
And rioters showing up in the middle of city streets with pile of bricks laid out neatly on top of pallets.
Yeah.
And then they're like breaking windows and destroying everything. And I saw Elon thinks that Act Blue is at the center of this.
That may be true.
The Democrats' money machine, George Soros, Reid Hoffman are at the center of this, and he's saying this chaos is from them.
I think you're making me paranoid even saying all this out loud.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm aware of everything you just said, but the more you think about it, it's not good. It's corrosive of people's attitudes toward their own country, actually. And the root problem here is secrecy. We live in a country where the essential things are all shrouded in secrecy. Like, who's running the government? No one has any idea.
Yes.
How did this arise here, there, and 9 other places at the same time? Nobody knows. What is the truth? We can't find out who murdered the United States president 62 years ago.
Right.
And so the net effect of all of this is to destroy any hope of actual representative democracy, for one thing, and for another, to make the entire population like kind of third world in it thinking. Like, you get to magical thinking really quick. If you don't understand how anything works, and nobody will tell you, and everything is shrouded behind, the veil of secrecy for your own good, it's all a lie, then you just start to think that everything's a conspiracy. So I would say, and Donald Trump, when he was running for office, said, let's just declassify it all. Let's declassify every 9/11 document.
Yep.
The fact that people think that the U.S. government was behind 9/11 is really distressing. Maybe the U.S. government was behind 9/11. I literally have no idea because it's all classified. Why is it so classified? Almost 25 years later, like, what's the actual reason? Right. Don't give me the bullshit answer.
Yeah, because...
What's the actual reason? And why is the Kennedy assassination still a question mark? It was our president, elected by our population, and someone murdered him, and you still won't tell us everything you know?
Also, the tendency for the government to actually be at the center of some of these traumatic events, and for us to find out years later that was the case. So a perfect example is this weekend, the New York Times has a big op-ed admitting that COVID came from a lab in Wuhan, and saying that it's crazy that all these scientists were all conspiring to keep that from us. And then they even cited that, actually, it's not even the first virus that was government produced, that was made in a government lab, and then, of course, was released on the public. So,
they fired their own science writer for saying that, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the New York Times is irrelevant, or could be irrelevant, very quickly if we would just declassify this stuff on a thing I call the internet.
Sure.
Which is like an interconnected group of computers to which all of us have access. So you could just put the documents on the internet and stop lying to me about how we're protecting 60-year-old nuclear codes or something. The whole thing is a lie.
Yeah.
I want the 9/11 documents more than all. 9/11 changed this country more than anything in my lifetime. I was there for it. I had a friend who died in it. I immediately went to the Middle East to cover the aftermath of it. All of us I'm 55, my age, have some sort of stake in that event, and all of us, of course, have been living with the aftermath ever since. It totally changed American society.
Yeah.
And every time I bring this up, everyone looks uncomfortable, like, oh, you can't declassify 9/11, but we hate the truthers or whatever. Well, there's a really simple fix for that. Put all of it out there. Take your lumps. There is no operational reason. There's no actual critical national security reason to keep this stuff classified.
Yeah, and one would
You're a liar if you say there is.
And one would assume that if all the secrets are good faith secrets, presumably all they're trying to do is protect their own failures to detect the threat.
They just let in 15 million people illegally, and they're still here.
Yeah.
So don't give me the lecture about protecting me.
Right.
I'm totally sick of that. I'm an adult man. I don't have to listen to that crap anymore. Just declassify the 9/11 files. If you think these people are conspiracy theorists, then humiliate them with the truth.
Yes. Yeah, amen.
Liars.
The I saw,
Sorry, you're spinning me up, Vince.
so I've got you guys just had it up on screen. Can you put up the picture of the Teslas? We've got so in Northern Virginia. One of my favorite pastimes is following the Northern Virginia subreddit, which is basically just Democrats who are angry about everything.
Can you imagine how horrible that is?
Especially about Trump. They are so
they don't like Trump.
That's their Hiroshima.
Oh, is he a threat to the Rice Bowl?
That's their
a little bit.
That's their Nagasaki. Like Trump being elected by the people is their Nagasaki. So this is what I saw the other day. So these Teslas are all being attacked, and it turns out Democrats are attacking Teslas so indiscriminately they're just attacking each other. So Democrats are defacing, they're vandalizing each other's vehicles. This one says "I fund fascism" on the back of it. And you see here, this person says, a friend of mine just had his 5-year-old Tesla vandalized. He's a staunch Democrat from a family of Democrats. He wanted an electric car to do his part in moving towards a brighter future. And now he's a victim.
Well, he's a Democrat, so he was always a victim, or always thought of himself as a victim. I mean, no self-respecting adult man is going to be a Democrat in 2025 unless he sees himself as a victim, unless there's like self-hatred at the core, which obviously there is. So, I don't believe in vandalism. I'm against hurting property or hurting other people, especially ones you don't know. But like,
it is funny, though.
It's hard to feel too bad.
It's hilarious, though. They're attacking each other.
I thought I was working toward a brighter future by buying a vehicle I know nothing about, whose batteries actually cause more greenhouse gas emissions than 8 diesel trucks. But I didn't know that because I'm stupid.
It is amazing, and this is all just anti-Trump. It's like I'll take the opposite.
So dumb.
I'll take the opposite position I used to have. I've got Senator Mark Kelly. Check out this video. This is Senator Mark Kelly.
You can't criticize him.
Announcing that he has sold his Tesla and bought a Chevy Tahoe to protest Donald Trump. Take a listen.
All right, here I am with my new ride, Chevy, good old Chevy Tahoe, here in Washington, D.C. Got one of these in Tucson as well. This one was made by Union Labor, United Auto Workers in Arlington, Texas. Always good to buy union cars, incredibly reliable. And I'm looking forward to driving this for many, many years.
So he got rid of the Tesla. No more EV.
About the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
We can burn all the fossil fuels now, which is totally fine. Chevy Tahoe, I think, is one of the least fuel-efficient possible options he could have gone with.
With a bunch of parts made in China, Mexico, Canada. But whatever. It's fine. I drive a Chevy Silverado. I like Chevy trucks. And in fact, that's all I drive.
But you didn't make your identity electric vehicles.
Mark Kelly, I don't think you're allowed to criticize him because he was went to Mars or something. He's like an astronaut or something. It's so absurd. But you wonder how many UAW workers agree with him on the issues. Probably around zero.
Exactly.
Yeah, probably around zero. The whole thing, it's just it's such sad, empty posturing, but it's also pretty bad to make your sort of guiding principle opposing anything somebody else does. You should have principles that are independent of people and their behavior, especially mercurial people whose behavior changes, like the president, who I love. But if everything that Trump does defines everything that you hate, whatever Trump's for, I'm against.
Yeah.
Then you're a child and you shouldn't have power. That is not leadership. That's just sad.
But also, it's as a political matter, it just sucks your party into a black hole. So if that's the posture you're going to take, because Trump is, as you know, is very aware of what Americans like.
Yeah.
And he pays attention to it. This is why, I think people for years kind of mockingly talked about his obsession and fascination with television and production. But what that really was his sense of what the audience cares about.
Right. Ratings.
Ratings, yeah. He knows what people care
ratings
about.
Ratings are, in Trump's view, and I think there's some truth to it, ratings are the most reliable poll because they're not measuring intent. A pollster will ask you, Vince, who you're going to vote for in November? And you'd be like, well, I think I'm going to do this or do that or whatever. But who knows if you will? Ratings measure what you just did.
Yeah.
Right? They're measuring an action. So they're more accurate.
And so the NBC poll comes out this weekend. And right now, in terms of the right track, wrong track, Trump is the highest level that any president has been since 2004. That's right now. And Democrats have a 7% favorability rating.
Yeah.
The whole party has a single-digit favorability rating right now. As a part of one of the surveys that came out this week, they asked people, who do you think the leader of the Democrats is? The number one response, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, leader of the Democrats. Polling at 4%.
She is the most talented.
Barack Obama and Jasmine Crockett poll at 4% together. Isn't that one of the craziest things you've ever heard?
It's incredible. And I will say of AOC, obviously she'd put me in a camp if she could. I'm not, a fan or whatever, but she's good looking, and she has innate performance talent, which is based on her total lack of shame or self-awareness. And I'm not criticizing her at all. I mean, I worked in television. Like, those are key qualities.
Yeah, for sure.
But no, she has talent. I look at her and I'm like, yeah, I'd hire her for a show, actually. The rest of them are just losers. I mean, I think she's like a deranged person, but the rest of them are just like such losers and freaks.
Also a Tesla owner.
Like that weird guy they put up as VP, the VP
Tim Walz.
candidate.
Oh, yeah.
That guy? Like, you would never allow him anywhere near your own children. Like, he's just so obviously a dark freak, that guy. Like, you just could smell it on him. Everyone's like, oh, Trump is so weird and Misty, whatever that girl's name was he supposedly slept with or whatever. Misty? I can't remember her name.
I think it was Candy.
Candy?
I think.
Stormy, sorry. Whatever.
Haley Carnegie.
Whatever, the stripper lady. And everyone's like trying to make Trump into some kind of weirdo. But then you see Trump, you're like, he's not a weirdo. Like, he's pretty transparent. I know exactly who he is. That Tim Walz guy, he was like he was the perfect distillation. Like, okay, we need to find a white man who's voting for Kamala Harris. And they're like, no white men are voting for Kamala Harris because, like, how could you hate yourself that much?
Yeah, yeah.
It's really hard. And so they find this guy who's just like, all your spidey senses go off, and you're like, I don't know what you're into. I don't want it in my house. Like, you freak me out.
Yeah,
every time
time.
I looked at that guy, ugh.
Big time. Yeah, he was a creep.
Big time.
The girls say that he gives me the ick.
Yep.
Yeah,
and women.
They got the ick from
women
Tim
know.
Walz. Yeah.
They know. And I know Instagram told them to vote for that guy, but man, if he led a Boy Scout troop in my town, I would call the sheriff. I would lead a raid.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah, for
smart.
sure.
He would protect the town that way. So what do you think is going to happen with this party, if you can figure it out? Like, it does seem like they're in Siberia right now.
They are.
Like, there's no way to. It does feel like there's no way to come back, but there is.
Of course, there is.
The part of me that says, yeah, they're going to come back and somehow.
By the way, they should come back. You need a two-party state. You need the tension, just like in a marriage. It's like your wife wants something slightly different from what you want.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're moving toward the same goal, which is a happy, prosperous family and healthy, independent kids and all the good things. But there is always that tension in the marriage because you're so different. There's a man and a woman, and they have different priorities. And so through that comes a better solution.
Right.
Like, I think that's true. And so you need you don't want a one-party state. I don't care if it's my party. You don't want that.
For sure.
And they will come back, but it's going to require a lot more than they want to give. They're totally controlled by donors, as unfortunately the Republicans tend to be as well. Everyone's controlled by donors in this country now. It's the age of the oligarch. But they're going to need someone who's like, you know what, the tranny stuff is really bad.
Okay.
I'm against the tranny stuff. Abortion is not a sacrament. Okay, maybe we're for legalized abortion, but the more abortions you have, that's not going to get you to heaven. Like, we have to stop worshiping it. Human sacrifice, like, abortion is just sad, okay?
Right.
At very least, someone's going to have to say that. You can't have a party based on castration and killing babies. Like, that's like some sort of Canaanite religion at that point. And most people are like, no.
But they're sticking with it right now.
They are because the donors want it. You know?
It's crazy. I mean, even to the point that what we saw this weekend with Judge Boasberg, the D.C. district judge.
That guy looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah. Miserable.
He was an HW appointee. I mean, he was a W appointee, wasn't he?
Yeah, I don't think any of those qualifications really matter to me. Like, if I see, appointed by a Republican president, I'm like, who cares?
No, but he was appointed by W, who is like a left-wing Democrat at this point, big time. Huge abortion guy. His girls are out campaigning for Planned Parenthood. Like, if one of your daughters is like, I'm going to go door to door for Planned Parenthood, you'd be like, no.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing that. Like, what?
There's a death cult knocking on the door?
If your daughters are campaigning for Planned Parenthood, you're a bad father.
You messed up.
Oh, you think?
Yeah. I would judge myself very harshly for that. But Boasberg, so what happens is, going into the weekend, President Trump announces that they've got hundreds of these very dangerous gangsters, illegal alien gangsters, Tren de Aragua. They've rounded everybody up, they put them on planes, and they flew them to El Salvador.
Yeah.
Which I adore.
What's awaiting them there, Vince?
This is what we have to get into. I can't wait. But Judge Boasberg goes, no, you're not allowed to do that. I'm going to stop you, turn the planes around, bring them back. And Trump, to his great credit, says, up yours, they're going. And we're not turning the planes around, and lands them in El Salvador. So we have. Let's play the footage of. In a moment, we're going to play this footage. I want people to see all of these terrorists who did not expect this sudden change in accommodations in life. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, with the Maha movement in full force, I'm very inspired to make my own health and fitness a big priority again. And this is why I'm very excited to be working with Don and the team at Jacked Up Fitness, which is an amazing American company. You should see this thing. It's awesome. Their commercial-grade Power Rack Pro has everything that you need to get a full-body workout at home. The cable crossover system, integrated 200-pound weight stacks, and a Smith machine allow you to do hundreds of exercises, basically everything you can do at the gym. And you can set it up in your garage or your basement or wherever you have some space. It's awesome. My wife and I have always been into fitness, but with our busy schedules, it's harder than ever to make it out to the gym. So having a badass all-in-one Power Rack Pro right there in the house, it's going to be a game changer for your family. It's a game changer for mine. We're also super excited about their Get Jacked Up program that has full-body video workouts led by celebrity trainers Kim Lyons and Clark Bartram. You literally just press play and you follow along. It's great, especially if you're just getting started. So listen, I'm doing this. You should too. Let's do it together. Plus, I got to fill out these schmedium shirts, right, that Dan has entrusted me with. Get to jackedup.com. I see you in there, Mike, who's supporting me here. Go to getjackedup.com. That's easy. Get jacked up. I can say it. Getjackedup.com. Sign up to access the program right now for free. And when you're ready to order your Power Rack Pro, save 10%. Just use my promo code, Vince. So easy. You don't have to spell my last name, just my first. No more excuses. This is going to be epic. Go to getjackedup.com, promo code, Vince. All right. So we've got illegal aliens.
Well, can I just read something to you? It's just related.
Would you?
So I'm getting, it's your show, but I cannot resist.
Please,
it.
read.
I'm getting our morning note that we put out every morning, which is written by my beloved nephew, Marshall Worth, who's like a genius. Here's the headline. You could have written this. By the way, Vince is the best headline writer I've ever met in my whole life, and I spent my whole life writing headline writers. You are the very best. This is pretty good. Ivy League human rights fellow convicted for having a slave. A British jury recently convicted Columbia University human rights fellow Lydia Mugabe of forcing a Ugandan woman into domestic servitude. She committed the crime after luring her future slave into Britain under false pretenses. Mugabe, who also serves as a United Nations judge, brought the victim to Britain under the guise of securing her a job before forcing her to labor away as an unpaid maid and nanny. She confiscated her slave's passport and visa, leaving her trapped. So a human rights fellow is a slave owner.
It's amazing.
It's incredible.
And totally believable. It's like I've been saying a lot lately. It's not shocking, but it is appalling. Because, isn't that?
I'm stealing that.
Isn't that literally
good.
everything?
That's totally good. Yes.
Not shocking, but totally appalling, which is typical. Also, not shocking and totally appalling is that the Biden administration allowed rapists, murderers, thieves, all sorts of awful people to run around our country. They knew they were here. They were all fully documented. No such thing as undocumented, and yet they were here in the country. And the Trump administration has just rounded them up and ejected them all the way to El Salvador. And I want to explore this with you in just a moment because I know you know a lot about this. Let's take a look at some of the video. This is President Bukele sharing a video that goes very hard as they take these guys and treat them to something very different than what they're used to. So smart to do this on video.
Man.
Cameras, guns, everywhere. Gang tattoos. They get these guys out of the vehicles, they bring them in, they shave their heads. They get rid of all the hair, even their beards. They're shaving their beards off their faces.
Oh, man.
Batons, like, all over the place, just ready to beat these guys back into submission.
Helicopters hovering above. What's happening in El Salvador is one of the most interesting developments of my lifetime. I've been to El Salvador 4 times. I first went there in the 80s during the Civil War. I was there before Bukele during the period when the gangs controlled the country, and I've been there twice since he's taken over. And I don't think any country has ever been transformed as quickly as El Salvador has been under Bukele. And he's done a lot of things, but basically he broke the gangs. And what it took to do that is remarkable. It was not simple at all. I've been to that prison that you just saw.
I know.
And I don't think it's, inhumane, but it's really tough, like for real.
Well, it's a tough prison for some of the most vile humans on the planet.
But he takes it serious. Look, there's a lot here. This is like an hours-long conversation, but I would say he takes it seriously. So, for example, they put gang members in prison in this country, in El Salvador.
Here's you going to the prison.
Oh, that's me?
Yeah, this is when you went to El Salvador.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, but look, the key thing about gang leaders, criminal enterprise leaders in prison is they continue to run their operations, right?
Yeah.
And they do it by cell phone. And that's, in the United States, there's a prisoner TikTok. You can look it up. One of my kids was just telling me about it, showed me some, where prisoners are in prison making videos on their cell phones and uploading them onto the internet. That should be, that seems like an easy problem to fix, but no one's bothered to fix it in this country. In Salvador, they have signal blockers around the prison. There are no cell signals possible. It doesn't matter how many cell phones you have, they don't work. So they cannot control their businesses from prison. They are truly isolated. And there's a lot else there. But bottom line, even if you're kind of liberal about imprisoning people, I'm very liberal about imprisoning people. I don't think we should. I'd rather be executed than imprisoned because I just don't believe in separating people from nature. I really feel that. But whatever, no matter where you are, that works. That works. That went from the most dangerous country in the world to the safest country in the world. Really simple.
Very quickly.
In 3 years.
Yeah.
And, so many lives were saved. That's the first thing. And the second thing I would say is there's a religious, not just component, a religious driver to this.
Yeah.
MS-13, and there are a couple of different organized criminal gangs in Salvador and throughout Latin America, are religious organizations that worship Satan.
Yes.
That's not I'm not an evangelical for the record.
That's their own explanation.
That's their own description.
Yeah.
And I went to one of their shrines, where they sacrifice. One of the reasons that there's been so much, not just killing in Mexico and Honduras and Guatemala and all those countries, not just killing, but torture, slow killing. We don't just, shoot someone, like the mafia would just shoot you and then, throw you in the bay. In Latin America, they torture you over a period of days. The torture is the point. The suffering is the point. This is an offering in the same way their ancestors tortured and killed in offerings to their gods.
And they turn your carcass into a display.
Much like the Incas did and the Aztecs did.
Yeah.
And the Mayas did. So, this is regionally consistent. It's just a fact. I love Latin America and I love Latin Americans. I'm not attacking anybody. I'm just saying this is true. This is the indigenous religion, and it's continuing. And you don't want it here because it's one thing to take down the Giancanas or whatever. It's much harder to fight a religious cult that has high-tech weapon systems.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I like what Bukele is doing. Bukele announced all of this very proudly on X, sharing that he's working really closely with the Trump administration. He accentuated the fact he's basically this costs very little for America. They're paying. The United States is going to pay for these prisoners to be kept there, but it means a lot to El Salvador what they're taking in. He's got this great partnership with President Trump. I can't help but think that
he's going to run Latin America.
Bukele is.
Yes, he's the Simon Bolivar of our time.
But I can't help but think that one of the reasons President Trump and everybody else is aware of Bukele and working so closely with him is because you kind of had a role in introducing him to the United States. Because you would feature him on your show, you did these interviews with him. It does seem like you were kind of at the epicenter of bringing attention to that.
He came and stayed with me. No, I was just I'm interested in Latin America. I think it's really important. We're in America. That's Latin America. It's right there. It's our neighbor.
Yeah.
I love Jerusalem. As I say, I love many parts of the Middle East. I've been all over the Middle East and I love it. But it's not next to me. And my family's from here for 400 years. So, I care about what's happening right next door. And I think all Americans should. And we've sort of helped destroy Latin America. It is true. It's a leftist talking point, but it's also accurate that the United States has been instrumental in destabilizing that whole region. But they have pre-existing problems. And the main problem they have is this dark religion that is all over the region. It's all over the region. Witchcraft, voodoo, Santeria, whatever you call it, human sacrifice, that has never died. And we need to be honest about it. It's not an attack on anybody. It's not racism to note that people's religion is devil worship and it entails human sacrifice. And that is just, there are a lot of people who are adherents to that religion, and we should just say it.
Yeah, for sure. And by the way, I am keeping an eye on the chat. I know everybody's sending all your great messages. Thank you for that. We're talking to just about 100,000 people live right now.
Is that good? Or
I think that qualifies as good. I think most people, yeah, if you can, I think we're filling multiple stadiums at this point, so I think that's probably a good sign.
Good.
KSG21 says, this is awesome. I'm learning so much. Thank you, Vince. And TLSC 2016 says, great footage of the deportations. Jenna May saying, morning, Vince and everybody. Good morning. Great to have you here on Vince. And we've got Tucker for a lot longer, trust me, coming up. But first, we are in a turbulent time right now, as you can hear. You're seeing all these daily changes to things that are going on in the economy, and it is having a massive impact on the global and national economy. And that can be intimidating, kind of scary. But you can do something to protect your savings right now. You can diversify. Diversify a portion of your savings into gold with the help of Birch Gold Group. I just had a call with them the other day. They're a great team. Birch Gold specializes in helping you convert an existing IRA or a 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in physical gold or silver for no money out of pocket. You can just listen to this 5-star review. Knowledgeable, helpful, non-pressure. Well, that's exactly what you want. And that's what you get with Birch Gold. And this is why I'm proud to endorse them. Start by getting your free info kit on gold. Just text my name, Vince, to the number 989898, and Birch Gold will send you your free info kit. No obligation. That's easy. Just useful information. They've got an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and countless 5-star reviews. Text Vince to 989898 and let those experts at Birch Gold help you protect your future today with gold. Message and data rates apply. Man, it is just amazing though to see how quickly things can be cleaned up, and that the footage of watching terrorists getting hauled out of the country and thrown into a jail in El Salvador, and the reality that all these guys are being picked up off the street and the word is getting out. Have you noticed what happened to our border? All of a sudden, the whole planet knows that Trump means business.
Can I say something that I probably shouldn't say it, but I just think I was noticing it? Bukele's an authoritarian leader. Just saying that. Mm-hmm. He's my friend. I love Bukele, but he's an authoritarian leader.
What he wants goes is what you're saying.
He is also democratically elected by the highest margin of any elected leader in the world. So he's the most popular elected leader, but he's also authoritarian. He is a right-wing leader. Mm-hmm. He's not a dictator. He's elected, but he's an authoritarian. Right-wing authoritarianism is very popular, and it always has been popular. You know, bigotry, Nazi shit where you're like killing Jews or is disgusting. And everyone hates that. Everyone should hate that. I hate that. But, you know, nationalism, hardcore, like we're serious. We're going to protect our country, and anyone who threatens our country is in trouble. That is very popular. And we have spent decades hearing how that's not popular, how it's immoral. It's popular. Left-wing authoritarianism is not popular and never has been because it's contrary to human nature. And it's contrary to God. It's anti-God. And people are inherently aware that God exists. And if you pretend you're God, you're a pretender. So anyway, Bukele is like a very powerful model for how the world is going. What we're doing is not working. I want democracy. I love democracy. Free speech is the most important thing to me. I'm not calling for I want to preserve that. But I also think globally, Bukele, there are going to be a lot more leaders like Bukele. It's just a fact. There are.
But it's about, in this case, it's about restoring order. It's like there's so much disorder.
But that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. There's so much disorder because of the left.
So you can never defeat crime in this country, which is like truly out of control. And I wish we'd stop talking about the mullahs getting the bomb. Oh, shut up. Pakistan's had the bomb for 25 years. Are you upset about that? I don't want Iran to get a bomb. Nobody does. But that's not our most pressing problem. Our most pressing problem is in Midtown Manhattan. Like this is insane. This is our country.
Yeah.
The Ayatollah is getting the bomb. Again, please shut up. Stop. There are a million problems in the world. Let's start with ours. And to fix ours is going to take resolve, like real resolve. Like we're not putting up with this crap, period. And I don't know who, at some point, someone's going to take that posture, and that will be the most popular president this country's ever had.
So How do you describe the Biden presidency then? Because
totally confusing. I mean, I'm from D.C. I spent my whole life there. I know a lot of the Biden people. I shared a backyard with Susan Rice for 5 years. I feel like I kind of am from that world.
But it's not. I mean,
but I don't know who made the decisions. I still don't understand.
Right. But how do you describe that? Because it's not authoritarian insofar as Biden's not calling the shots on everything. It's literally the polar opposite of it in a way, that he's got a cabal of advisors around him. It was
technocratic fascism. I mean, I guess I could probably think of a more descriptive label, but I would say its orientation was really simple. All the big decisions led to the same place, which was to destroy the United States of America and its legacy population. And so they were famously anti-white. They hated white people. They said it a million times. White supremacy is the biggest threat. But what are they really saying? They're saying America as it is now is bad, and we're going to destroy it. And they did everything they could to abet the deaths of hundreds of thousands of legacy Americans through drug ODs, suicide, diabetes. Like, everything they did was aimed at killing the people whose ancestors lived here during the Civil War. Just a fact. Oh, look at the numbers. And as I heard someone say the other day, the point of a system is its effect. So it's like, whatever you claim your motive is kind of irrelevant to me. I'm looking at the effects of what you do. That's the point.
Right.
You can say that's not your motive, but if you keep doing it, it is your motive.
Yeah,
it's demonstrable.
It's a nonstop attack in every possible sense. So whether it's like physical attacks in the form of fentanyl, chemical poisoning of Americans, or just like attacking your culture nonstop.
Forcing everyone to take the COVID vax when you're pretty sure it's going to cause fertility declines? Like, what?
And
you're trying to thin out the population of the existing of the country as it existed when you took office.
And adopting this posture that there's nothing redeeming about our country, which is like to constantly like wage war.
But openly hating it and the people who live here. I just go back, I really believe the essential criterion for leadership is the love of the people you lead. You have to have that.
Right.
And if you don't, they'll die. And that you're the son of a Marine Corps officer, Marine Corps general. So you grew up with this. The officer has to, on some level, love his troops more than himself. That's how you have to feel about your children, or they will be destroyed. You have to be willing to give up your life for the people you lead, or else don't lead.
That's right. And meanwhile, the left resents the governed. They resent them.
They hated them.
They hate the system.
They died under. Look at the suicide rate. What does that tell you? If my kids start killing themselves, I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah.
There's nothing more pressing for me. No, everyone ignored the suicide rate. And then they're like, you know what we need? We need more suicide. Maybe the government will sponsor suicide. Killing our own citizens.
Yes.
And then it happens in Canada. And like our biggest trading partner, our longest shared border, and no one says a word about it.
No
and
State Department dispatches, nothing.
They're murdering thousands of native-born Canadians every year. The government is murdering them, not just for, chronic, not just for terminal diagnoses, but for chronic illnesses and then depression and then poverty. Just kill them. And that's like, look, all that matters are the big things. Are people living? Are they dying? Are they thriving?
Yeah.
Or are they falling apart?
Yes.
Are they enhanced or are they diminished? And by all those measurements, he wrecked our country.
So the Biden presidency this weekend got another round of attention from President Trump, actually overnight going into this morning, where he announced that all of the pardons that were signed for Liz Cheney and the January 6 people are not actually real pardons, that they were fake. They were like, movie props or something, because Biden didn't sign any of them. He says they're all AutoPen. They were signed by AutoPen and presumably completely out of Joe Biden's even knowledge of their signatures. And so therefore, they're not real pardons, he said, which is a pretty common sense thing. If the president doesn't sign a pardon doesn't exist. What do you make of this development?
Well, I have no idea. I mean, I think that this has actually been litigated. AutoPens have been, they're a staple in Washington. I was an intern in a senator's office 40 years ago when everything was by AutoPen. I don't know what the law is there.
Uh-huh.
You would think someone would bother to sign a pardon.
Well, doesn't it require cognition, though?
That's the deeper question. And I hope that the Trump White House, God bless them, continues to press this issue, because nobody has gotten to the bottom of the core question, which is who's running the government for 4 years at a time when we started a war in Eastern Europe.
Here's Trump shared this on X and Truth Social. There's pictures of him, his presidency from the first time from 45, and then the middle picture is not of Biden, but instead of the AutoPen. And then back again to the much harder, battle-hardened version of Trump for 47.
I don't know, battle-hardened, that's like, It's like lit from the bottom. That picture is so unbelievable. Dark MAGA.
And they're hanging it in every federal building.
That one right there.
Yeah, so when you walk into a federal building, that's what you're confronted with. Welcome to work.
It's quite a progression. You know, there are all these famous photo montages of presidents before and after, but that's like the most amazing. You know, usually they're grayer or whatever, but that one. So can you pan to the left to the original, the first Trump term?
Look how cheerful he is.
He's like, here I am. I can't believe I won. This is so awesome.
Yeah.
And then there you go. 8 years later, it's like he knows what's up.
Yes.
He's been briefed on how things actually work.
He's like more grizzled than ever. He's aging like John Wayne. He's
he is.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. So there he is. On Biden's competence, I was reminded, I was just talking to a source again this morning about this, that, you know, in the Biden presidency, they had no idea on any given day whether his mind was going to be operating. So,
oh, man.
So normally the way it works in D.C. is the president has a schedule and they alert all of the various law enforcement agencies a day before or so or more that they need to be ready to block off streets and move the president, and here's what's going to happen, here's who needs to be at work. They never had any idea. So what would happen was they'd wake Biden up in the morning and then they would do a cognitive check on him to see if he was capable of even stringing sentences together. And if he was, they would rapidly start alerting all the law enforcement to take to the streets. So you had to pull people off of other things. It was always chaos to get Biden to an event because they didn't know if he was with it that day.
Just making everybody paranoid. It's shaking any remaining faith we had in our institutions. It's really this kind of secrecy is wrecking the country. And lack of accountability. It's like no one is ever punished. No one in authority is ever punished for anything. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter the level of malice they display. It doesn't matter the level of incompetence. They're never punished. They never lose their pensions. They're never, brought down a rank. They never go to jail. Who ran the Biden White House? Who made these decisions? We'll probably never know. That fact alone makes you feel like the whole system is fake. Like, why am I even participate? Why even vote?
This is why everybody in this chat, I guarantee you, and I know everybody I know, are all very attuned to Attorney General Pam Bondi right now. What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Well, let's go. The clock is ticking. That Epstein stuff, I'm not telling you anything everyone doesn't already know, but that was bad. That was bad, and I do think, it's fair. It's super complicated to get control of something as large, the largest human organization in history, the federal government. On the other hand, Epstein documents, there are millions of Epstein documents. It's the Epstein videos. Like, let's be real here. It's the Epstein videos. And everyone kind of knows that we're not going to get to see those because that operation... Because
his whole house, his homes were all wired for video in order to capture blackmail.
Let's start here. I think it's pretty clear. I think any honest person reviewing all the evidence, and I have, it's like the one topic I know a lot about, surrounding his death, would conclude it was a murder. He was murdered. So he's murdered in the most secure unit in the federal detention center in Manhattan.
Yes.
How in the world could that happen? Now, Attorney General Barr, who was President Trump's Attorney General for part of his first term, was supposed to initiate an investigation into this, and he didn't. Where's the investigation? Why can't we get any answers about Epstein's death, which was clearly a murder?
Right. The cameras are off, the guards falsify the records, nobody visits the cell, and somehow he kills himself.
I've talked to the people Epstein was on the phone with hours before he died. He thought he was getting out of jail. I talked to his lawyer about it, his brother. Anyway, let's start there. How did Epstein die? Who killed it? Who has the power to murder someone in a federal detention facility and then cover it up? Like, what is that, actually?
Yes. Well, getting to the bottom of that is one of the many important things we have to do. This is, of course, the first episode of Vince. I am so thrilled that you were with us for this. Now, here's the cool thing. Tucker's not done. Our conversation continues. Part 2 of the big interview with Tucker Carlson will be right here tomorrow on Rumble. In the meantime, thank you for joining us.
Oh, bless you, Vincent. Congratulations. This is so cool.
It is cool, man. We've got a lot to get to. Thank you, Tucker.
Thank you.
And thank you.